Welcome to the Disability and podcast, bringing together thoughtful discussion and debate. This month, Disability Arts Online Senior Editor Colin Hambrook chats with actor Arthur Hughes about his leading role in Disney's newly released Tudor spy thriller Shardlake. This podcast contains some strong language.
Welcome to the Disability and podcast, and I'm really delighted this month to have Arthur Hughes with us, talking about his role in the recently recorded series on Disney Plus of Shardlake, the historic Tudor lawyer, and I've long been a fan of C.J. Sampson's writings, so I've long waited for the point where Shardlake translates to TV, and I'm really happy to say that they've done a great job. And so, Arthur, what was your response when you were first offered the part of Shardlake?
I think it was quite a loud expletive, and I think I fell to the floor slightly. I was in some kind of crouching position going, no effing way. I was bowled over. It felt, like a real life-changing moment. I'd auditioned and met with the creative team, and this is a lead part. As a disabled actor, you might be seen for lead parts. You kind of don't really often get anywhere near them, especially for a big show. But this, I felt like there was a real chance, and he's just such a brilliant character, such a hero, such a complicated man, and the script was just such an adventure that he goes on, not only physically but emotionally, spiritually. It was just brilliant. So, I feel like I've been really waiting for that job to come along. So when I knew I got it, it was, I think almost a feeling of, my God, I'm so ready for this. Also some, a bit scary. This is like definitely the biggest job I've ever done. But I felt really, really ready, and just super excited. And it was, the whole process, even till now, just as it's about to come out, has been, life-changing. And I think there's more to come, but love it. And I love him.
Yeah, he's a wonderful character. I think one of the best disability representations in literature, certainly in historical drama, and the filming of the series is so very atmospheric and evocative of 16th century England. And what was the experience of working on set like?
I think the production value was just so high, which really, really bolstered everyone's kind of commitment to making this. I think Stevie Lee, who was a friend of C.J. Sansom's and our producer, one of the exec producers on the show, who kind of brought the rights to be, to have Shardlake made. She's been trying to get it made for almost 20 years. And so I think to the point that we were now making it, and, with the money of Disney behind it, the production value was huge. We were filming in these locations. There was a castle just outside Vienna for the inside of the Skansi monastery, this Austrian old Gothic castle called Kreuzenstein. And it was incredible. Like this, we could film. This was kind of the interior of the monastery, the courtyard, and some of the inside bits, but not like the outside face. But once you were in through the walls. And you could film on this 360. It was just so perfect with a little bit of dressing, but you didn't, it wasn't fake. We were in this castle, -8 degrees. We're on horses. There's loads of things coming around. It was everything we were promised. And I could really, I could remember it so vividly even now, this castle, which was our home for that month. It spoke the production value they put behind it. They really wanted to make this as kind of authentic as possible. And, the world of Shardlake is really shady and creepy. Like even in the books, it's dirty. This isn't the Tudor court. This isn't the kings and queens and princes. They're kind of all rumbling on in the background. They've made something a lot more underworld, a lot dirtier, both how it looks, but also how people deal with each other. And so from the setting we were in to the kind of underhandness of the scripts, I think it's all really true to the books.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was it like working with Sean Bean and Anthony Boyle? They're such big names.
Fantastic. You couldn't ask for two better actors for those roles. Sean Bean, the Sean Bean.
He puts Cromwell to a T. With that sort of. There's something very slimy about
slimy,
the
sinister,
corruption.
But quite smooth, almost a very soft, sadistic tone underneath in the way he's relishing this new movement, the Reformation, and the acquisition of all this wealth. Sean was only on set for about 3 days because Cromwell in Shardlake's world is often spoken about, rarely seen. He's the power with which Shardlake can maneuver these difficult situations he's in, because he's the emissary of Cromwell, and Cromwell is a man to be feared. But those scenes we had, which were the scenes Sean and I had together, were very long, kind of exposing complicated scenes of master and servant, really. I work for him. He likes Matthew, he respects him, but ultimately he is using him as a tool to achieve his end. And I thought, Sean played that so well. It's just, you see him in so many things, and this was just another aspect maybe you wouldn't expect. Sean can be so vulnerable. He can be so kind of strong hero. This was a kind of, a soft, is he a villain? Is he on Shardlake's side? There was something quite, mercurial about his Cromwell. And Anthony Boyle, Anthony and I went to the same drama school, not at the same time. He joined just as I'd left. But I'd watched his career blossoming over the years, and just what a fantastic actor, and, great personality. We got on immediately. We're really good pals now. And I think to have that foundation of friendship for Shardlake and Barrack, they really are the odd couple, was great. I think to find the fun with them, the fun in, Shardlake's kind of grumpiness and stubbornness sometimes, and Barrack's cheekiness and maybe hot-headedness. When you get on so well with an actor, it's, we were working always to be like, what is the thing that we're trying to find here? We weren't in competition with each other. We were a good team.
One of the things that struck me, kind of knowing the books so well, is that your character as Shardlake is very, very true to the book, but Barrack is somehow, he's a bit more full on in the TV series. He's a bit more cocky, and how did you work that out?
We had 4 episodes to establish these guys, and I think he needed to be the kind of adversary opposition to Shardlake. So I think it was to make them quite opposite, and the whole story is about their quest for truth. What has happened at this monastery? What is the mystery? And Barrack's hot-headedness, front-footedness, maybe naivety in the way he goes about, I think it was just maybe accentuated to be the opposite of Shardlake's calm, thorough rigour and patience with how an investigation works, and to make him this cheeky kind of a comment to everyone, quick to anger, quick to reach for his sword, kind of ramped up a bit more. So, we wanted to, I guess that was the thinking, to establish how opposite they are. Once they get to the monastery, they actually have to start listening to how each other works, how that, maybe there's a bit that Shardlake can learn from him. There's a lot that Barrack can learn from Shardlake, I think, in how to find something out. But yeah, Anthony was the perfect, playful, cheeky actor to bring that out.
Because Shardlake he's a very complex character, very powerful in his own quiet, kind of resolute way, but he's also very vulnerable because of his impairment, because he's constantly faced with discrimination in every step that he takes. And
yeah, I think it is. It's that what I loved about him when I was first reading is, this contrast within him. Like, he's supremely confident and powerful and have this authority, but on his own, it seems he's not that confident. Actually, he has to kind of talk himself up. He's successful. He's got a good reputation, but to the person on the street, he's the devil. He's touched by malevolent forces, and that's why he looks the way he is. And as a disabled person, I have some semblance of what that's like. I can be happy with my success and the way my life's going, and it can take one comment or look in the wrong place to kind of suddenly knock that confidence out of you. And that's the complexity of being disabled in society. So Shardlake absolutely feels that, but he knows that he is good at his job. He enjoys it. He enjoys being precise. He enjoys being patient. He enjoys justice and truth. And, I think has a real philosophy that holds on to that, but can be stubborn, can be compromised, can be changed by a pretty face, can be outmaneuvered by someone who's more cheeky and confident, like Barrack. And he has all those emotions to deal with as well, whilst trying to keep that composure. And it's just, all those colours to play is it's fantastic.
And he's very strong in his disability awareness of his right to be, his right, his, like his, he knows that he's good at his job, but within this story, he's very much put out of his comfort zone by Cromwell, and he's used to dealing with kind of fairly black and white issues of justice, but with under Cromwell, he's put in a position of having to measure how much of the corruption and the seediness and the he will he will take. And
well, I guess he's a lawyer used to dealing with legal cases, and it's a lot of his is kind of land and property law, I think, in the books, and he's sent to shut down this gigantic monastery. It's not so much legal; it's a massive question of faith, of the direction of the country and what the word of the Bible says. And these monks think one thing, and now Cromwell and Henry VIII say no, this is it. And he, to go in and be the absolute outsider and have to find what this wrongdoing is in the monastery in order to shut it down, and ultimately, just to bleed them of their wealth. It's about power, and that that journey he goes on to. It's not so much as you say, like a black and white, clear cut legal case he's going in to do. This is a whole question of faith and what that does to him going on this journey in this huge time, this huge shift in the country of where the power lies, who has the wealth, and who controls religion. And he's not a stupid man. I think it becomes clear as this conspiracy really that underlies the whole story becomes clearer to him, and what his place is within it. That's a really fascinating journey for him to go on as well, figuring out what his place is in all this. He thought it was one thing, and then as he digs deeper, this is probably the biggest case of his life. And I guess we come to Shardlake in this journey. This is the first book, and it's just a huge important time that as he changes as a man, he changes what his views are on this world he's thrust into. And in terms of how he views himself with his disability, one of the big things that unlocked it for me was this flashback at the end of one of the early chapters where he's in the monastery that he grew up in, and there's an older monk who, when Shardlake, expresses his desire to follow in the Brotherhood's footsteps, this monk says, we are made in God's image. How do you think you can ever do that? Look at yourself, boy. And, it emotionally hits him so hard, and he's really, really hurt by that, this first religious ableism that is subject to as a boy. And then at the end of the chapter, he says, even though I felt so broken and low by it, he said, God spoke to me that night, and it didn't come from outside, it came from within. And it said, that's not correct. You're a good person. And he said, God never spoke to me any other time apart from then. For some people, he never speaks to them, but I know he heard me then, and he told me the exact opposite. And I was like, this faith he finds in himself, which he's so true to, and and he calls it God, but there is love for himself when he just hears it quietly, and that's the thing he really holds on to, this sense of right and wrong and morality within him, which he's so sure of in himself. And when he first hears it, and I remember it broke my heart, that chapter when I read it, but it was such a key thing for unlocking how even when he's up against the prejudice and the difficult times all throughout his life, he has this inner voice which he's so strongly attached to. And I think that's the thing, that he's got this inner power that when he hears it for the first time as a boy, he hears it all his life.
One of the things that really stood out for me that's in the series is how much his moral fibre resonates within his character, especially in relation to the other disabled character in the story, Simon Wellplay, and the way that he immediately runs to Simon's defence when he sees him being bullied by the other monks within Scansey.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think, and that's, I was like, why is Shardlake a lawyer? And, there's a lot of lawyers throughout the books who are really awful people, but he's a lawyer for standing up for people, standing up against bullies, against those who are trying to wrong others. And certainly in that scene in the show where he has that flashback, which I just mentioned, and he has it because he's watching Wellplay light the candles, who he knows is this vulnerable person within this kind of, these monks are like an organised crime family, and Wellplay's the punching bag, and he goes, he sees himself in that. And yeah, I love that about him. He's such a caring person. Even he suffers so much injustice himself, simply by being the way he is, the way he looks, and yet he has such a capacity for love and care, which is, I think why people love him so much.
You have such a connection with Shardlake, and it really comes across. I wonder what was it like getting into the skin of his character. Were there any kind of exercises or processes that you kind of evolved in through achieving that?
Working with our director Justin Chadwick, who was just fantastic and really went there with me. But we found his real sense of cool and calm. He doesn't fly off the lid. I don't know, just the patience, but the kind of quite piercing interrogation in him. He's like a dog with a bone, but he's not intense, or and I mean intense in a kind of frantic way. I think things get like that in the show, but it was finding his real calculating thoughts, letting people trip themselves up as he's talking to them, and that sureness in himself of, I know exactly how to do this, even if I don't know which direction we're going in yet. I keep the patience, I keep the calm, we work through it. Barak fidgeting there going, why don't we just force them? And he's going, no, this is not how we do things. And so having that as like the kind of base of where he's at, he every day he takes this coolness, calmness with him, and even when something riles him up, he always has to take himself back. He has that inner voice to go, no, keep to that, keep your strength. And and another big thing was figuring out how he moved. He has scoliosis. I don't have scoliosis, but that's always one of the first things, figuring out how a character moves. And I work with an excellent movement director and did, research into how people might aid themselves who had scoliosis in the period, and we came up with some quite cool leather brace thing that he would maybe have had made by, I don't know, some leather maker he knew. And it was fun. When I was younger, I used to put my right arm, my smaller arm, in my pocket a lot to kind of hide it, I guess. And it bent me over to my right. It gave me some not great back issues when I was a teenager. And I thought about that, and I thought about, that shape, and it felt quite hunchback. It felt, this is one side, favouring one side, not a huge kind of, something, but it was something within my body that felt, I knew that I was like, that's going to be the shape for Shardlake. So it was, finding that S, then I, worked out where my head was going to be, and it was going to be the left shoulder slightly raised because the spine was bent over, as I bent my spine over by putting my hand in my pocket, which felt really true to me in a way that, what my disability and what it did for me in my body. So we created that, and I kind of gave him quite a low centre of gravity as well, legs slightly bent. I was like, if he is imbalanced in this way, he wants a low centre of gravity. So if he was knocked over once when he was younger, he goes, that's not going to happen again. I'm going to be a strong unit when I walk. So he's slightly lower down and just bent over to the right. And it gave him a real sense of, I felt he was quite wide. He's quite stocky. It's not, he's a bit of, you don't go through him. He kind of, when you come up against him, you're like, oh, he's an obstacle, not only psychologically with his questions and his, set his nose for truth, but also physically as well. Wanted him to be physically strong and, and a presence.
Yeah, he has such a physicality, doesn't he, that it makes him unique in the way that he thinks and the way that he resolves things internally and also externally with the world that he encounters. And having seen C.J. Sansom talk, I always wonder if there's an element of the author in that character.
I think he has. I've heard that he's mentioned that before, and I think he's spoken openly about being bullied in his lifetime, and maybe writing the character who would who stands up to bullies as he does. And whilst Shardlake is derided and bullied by some people, by Cromwell, by Norfolk, by those more powerful than him, he retains his own power and dignity with dealing with them. And wherever he sees a bully, like the Prior Mortimus, where he sees people abuse the power that they have, he takes it on himself to go, my job is to, right those people who abuse the power they have and empower those who are hurt by it. That's in that scene with Wellplay, which, and shout out to Joe Barber, who plays Wellplay, who's just such a fantastic young actor. And it was a real pleasure to do that with him, because I thought he encapsulated the vulnerability of Wellplay so well, and it's quite heartbreaking the relationship that they have. He really wants to save him and has trouble doing so.
And his relationship with Guy, he kind of sees himself in that character.
Yeah, another outsider.
Another outsider.
Yeah, completely.
And of course, that relationship develops through the books. We in Dissolution we see their first encounter, and I think it gives him a roundness and a believability. It's quite interesting. I think the way that we have this kind of historic situation that is very powerful and very evocative, but somehow it translates across the centuries.
Yeah. I think he's, Justin and I talked about this. He's quite he's got quite a modern view of the world. He's like born in the wrong time. How he views how people should be, how, you know, some of in the book certainly is like his musings on land and wealth and the systems of justice, the systems of where power lies and where it should be and what the people with power should be doing. And he's such a kind and independent and successful, you know, this portrayal of just really empowered disability is just, you know, it speaks of something so much more modern than a lot of other disabled characters. He's not the subject of pity. He's not the subject of shame. There's a pride and a power to him, and yeah, it's, you know, really whilst having, you know, a lot of the vulnerability and often not self-hatred, but, you know, the doubt that's in there, and he has the power to overcome it. And, you know, I just think it's very now. And
it's very human as well.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think, you know, and I think everyone does that, be it disabled or not. You know, I think that's the thing about, especially with a visible disability, you know, I think everyone has their weaknesses, and some people, you know, you can literally see it on them, but everyone has something within them that they do. And, you know, he has them within, and then he has them without. But I think what Stephen Butchard, you know, who wrote the screenplay, done so brilliantly is bring out that inner monologue that sometimes is spoken, because obviously all the books are told from Shardlake's first person point of view. But what was really nice in the script was to have this, you know, he sometimes does vocalize to himself. He kind of has to coach himself up a bit in the moments where he's weak, where, you know, Barak gets under his skin, or a moment with Alice where he's kind of flustered and thrown. He does have to stop and go, look, talk to yourself. You know, you are with reputation and they will misjudge you, Matthew, but you will get to the bottom of it. This will be the first, and, you know, and then he's back again. And I love that, you know, I love his, you know, he just has quiet words with himself. It might be in his head, and then sometimes he'll just actually vocalize it and then go, yes, I'm back. I am Shardlake, and I am great.
Yeah, and of course he's in relation to Alice. He's very powerful with Jack and with keeping Jack in his place. It's that, you know, there's a very difficult dynamic that plays out there between the three of them, and
bit of a triangle of emotions and allegiances. You know, what he feels, his growing friendship with Jack, his obvious attraction to Alice, and protectiveness over her, you know, and then seeing Jack's attraction to her as well, and the jealousy that's within that, but there's kind of a paternal instinct to the both of them that he's, but also these loyalty to Cromwell, and, you know, all these friendships, attractions, loyalties, and all swirling around whilst he's in this, you know, haunted house of mafia monks. There's a lot to deal with.
I have to say, Arthur, I thought you played all those nuances incredibly well.
Oh, thank you.
It was very clear, I think, from your performance how much you loved the part and how much you'd thought your way into it, and of course you've played quite a number of different types of characters through your career. And is there a type of character that you love to play best?
I think a good character is a good character for, you know, many different reasons. I think playing someone complicated, whether they're a villain or a hero, to have their, like, someone who's full of contrast and complex, and, you know, Shardlake's great for that. Playing Alan Holdsworth in Barbara Met Alan, you know, he was hugely emotionally kind of complicated guy, and, you know, caught up in a whirlwind of a movement whilst, you know, trying to maintain a relationship and a family, and, you know, carrying the weight of that. You know, also, again, love playing that, you know, would have loved more, really, to explore that part. I think I like the challenge of of a contrast within someone. And I think that was, we played Richard III in 2022 at the RSC, and a part I wanted to play, ever since I knew who Shakespeare was, and it's archetypal villain in Richard, but I wanted to find some humanity, some vulnerability within him as well, instead of making this arch mustache twirling villain. There was something I wanted people to feel a bit sorry for him. So I guess it's finding the other side of the coin to when you read a character, what is the depth that's behind the facade of what I first see. And so I think I'm probably always looking for the depth behind the first presentation. I do want to play a character where kind of the disability is this, as I think it is with Shardlake, it is a secondary thing. It's the least interesting thing about him. It's certainly a defining characteristic in the time he lives in, but actually it's his complex soul and the situation he's in which is the most interesting, I think. But I'd love to play a character where it just kind of is. I think there's such a power in just having the normality of disability, and there's no explanation. It just kind of is, and it's not even in the script. Obviously it is in Shardlake and how people talk to him, but maybe I'd love to play something in a more modern context where it's not anything that needs to be commented on. It just is the power of the ordinariness of disability instead of the extraordinary context with which it's sometimes put in. I think there's actually the power exists in the ordinary of our everyday lives as disabled people, and I don't really know what that is. Maybe like I don't know, maybe like a spy thriller or something would be quite cool.
Yeah, I would the antipathy to 007, which is the ultimate disability discrimination trope. It's one of the things. What we've been fighting for within the disability movement is to stand against those reductions of disability to
damaged, disfigured villains. And you'll always be the villains. I feel like it's changing, and I hope. I was so excited by Shardlake, so I was like, this is a hero. Got a sword on my back, looking strong, proud. I was like, that's the hero. I mean, you know what I mean when I'm saying, this, hunchback, crookback all throughout. It's kind of, it's a theme that runs through, and it's still not quite escaped. I'm just playing a part which is just kind of me. I think that's what I want, like a part that is just my shape, my body, my arm, and it just kind of is. Like I go about my day-to-day life, and that's it. I'm not affecting anything. I'm just being. I'd like to be a part where I can just be the part without maybe thinking so acutely about disability.
I mean, disability is something to be expected and respected as an ordinary part of life. It's the ableist world that constantly kind of mirrors disability back to us in a way that's unhelpful.
Exactly. So it's about whatever the next thing is or whatever the thing, the job I do where that does happen. It's about those who are making it that understand that and go, yeah, completely. It just is. We don't have to go, but what are we saying with that? You're not saying anything. You're saying, well, what you're saying is what's unsaid. That's the power of it. I remember seeing my darling friend Ruth Madeley in Years and Years, and that was a real example of it, where her character was just what like Ruth goes through day to day. It was just her character was about her relationships and her family, and it was about her life it wasn't about the struggle of her disability or that's not it. It was about her making a cup of tea and sleeping with this guy, and I remember watching it going, that's it, that is it, that's what I'm after. Because I thought the power in that is that's where it lies. I think not that we shouldn't I think disabled stories, there needs to be more told about it. People can learn so much more about it, the fascinating and rich history. But that's, I think, where I think some real power lies in how we cast disabled people in non-disabled roles, not non-specific disabled roles, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved that. I loved that drama. And
it was
Ruth
great, wasn't it?
Ruth was fantastic in it.
Yeah, she is. She's great. Shout out Ruth.
Shardlake is the series ends. It's out now on Disney Plus, and it ends with a kind of a few telltale signs that there is going to be a follow up. Can I ask that? Is that going to be? Is there something new in the pipeline?
I would, I'd love to be doing Shardlake for the next 10 years. I think there's absolutely a desire to. We'll just have to wait and see. I think we'd absolutely love to do them all, but these things take a bit of time before they're confirmed to do it. But I'm absolutely up for playing Shardlake in the next adventure. So I think we'll just have to sit tight and cross our fingers.
Fantastic. And for you as an actor, have you got anything in the pipeline coming up?
Just auditioning at the moment, waiting to hear on things. I think now Shardlake's out, we'll see. But no, nothing booked. I'm looking at a summer wide open to maybe go on holiday, do a few nice things. But the nature of this biz, it can all change with a phone call tomorrow. So we'll see.
Well, the best of luck, Arthur. It's been absolutely delightful talking to you.
Thank you so much. Likewise. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
So excited to see Shardlake finally on our screens. I think that the BBC did a good job of the radio adaptation, but this is super. And I thank everyone for listening in to the Disability and podcast, and I would utterly urge you to go to Disney Plus to check out Shardlake. Thanks very much, Arthur.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We do hope you've enjoyed this episode of Disability and. Our thanks to Colin and Arthur for an interesting insight into the making of Shardlake. Further episodes of Disability and can be found at www.disabilityarts.online/projects and go to the Disability and homepage. Please join us next month when Paul Wilshaw chats to Emily Blackwell and Charlotte Jones of Mind the Gap about their upcoming touring show, Birdie.